UFO Channel.
The year was 1956 at the White Sands Missile Testing Grounds near Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. The site was used for rocket tests, and Major William Cunningham was involved in collecting debris for tests after a successful launch. Assisting him was Air Force Sergeant Jonathan P. Lovett. It was an uneventful day full of tedious work, and the two men separated to cover different areas of the field. But what had been a predictable day of work was about to become anything but when Cunningham was snapped out of his labor by a blood-curdling scream from nearby. It was Lovett. In the New Mexico desert, danger wasn't uncommon, especially with venomous snakes everywhere. Cunningham was prepared to spring into action with first aid if Lovett had been bitten, but he wasn't prepared for what he found. The scream was Lovett, but what had grabbed him wasn't a snake or anything from this world. Lovett was being dragged, screaming in terror, by a long metal arm that was wrapped around his legs. It was so long Cunningham didn't even know where it ended until he looked up. The long metallic appendage wasn't on the ground, but it was leading up to a large silver disc in the sky, hovering 20 feet overhead. Cunningham stumbled back, frozen in horror, and watched as Lovett was pulled into the sky and into the disc, which rose into the sky and disappeared from view. Major Cunningham radioed for help, but the horror was just beginning. The site was soon swarming with security teams as they combed the missile testing grounds for any sign of Lovett, but nothing could be found. Cunningham was incoherent and kept talking about an inhuman object having kidnapped the soldier, and most believed he suffered a mental breakdown. He was taken to the base hospital for observation and questioning, but he never wavered from his story that Lovett had been taken into the air by a UFO. Backing up his account, according to some sources, the base had a radar system that did pick up an unidentified radar contact near the location at the time Lovett was taken. This caused the military to step up the search, examining the surrounding desert for the next few days. But it would be 3 days before anything was found, and what they found would shock and confuse everyone. It was Sergeant Jonathan Lovett's body, almost 10 miles from where he'd been taken. Many people had suspected Cunningham might have been the one to hurt Lovett, but the location of the body made that near impossible. He wouldn't have had the time to move the body before he radioed for help. The medical examiners concluded that the body had been exposed to the elements for between 1 and 2 days, meaning Lovett had been somewhere else before his body was left in the desert. And he was totally naked. But that wasn't the only thing that was different about his body, and horrors that had been done to him made people think of one thing: aliens. Since the earliest UFO sightings, farmers had claimed their cattle were being taken from fields by UFOs and returned to Earth dead and horribly mutilated, often with precise markings that looked like they'd been done by a machine. Most people believed that there were other explanations, like cults or natural causes like predators and parasites. A ranting farmer claiming that his prize cow Bessie was taken by aliens wasn't usually enough to get federal investigators involved, and there'd been no reports of anything like this happening to a human until now. The on-base medical investigators soon discovered that Lovett's corpse had been horribly mutilated, with his tongue removed at the root and his eyes neatly gouged out. Even more horrifying, his anus and genitalia had been removed, and many of his organs had been taken out. Making it more confusing, they'd all been neatly extracted as if through a surgical procedure. But no mad surgeon would do this to a human. The final revelation about Lovett's body had been the most disturbing. His body had been carefully drained of blood, but the vascular system was intact, not like what happens when someone bleeds to death. Who or what could have done this to Sergeant Jonathan Lovett? The answers aren't going to be easy in coming. Project Grudge Report had 14 files, and the first 12 and the 14th have all been declassified. They discuss various UFO sightings with a good amount of evidence for them, but no conclusive proof. But Grudge Report number 13 isn't mentioned in any official files and remains firmly classified to this day.
We'd like to ask for your input. Share your opinion and expertise with us in the comments after watching the video. If you're a subscriber, you'll always get a heart from us as a small thank you, and we'll pin your important post to the top where everyone will read it first. Just make sure you've already subscribed, like the video, and mention both at the beginning of your comment.